Hello and welcome to GEOSCOPE on Politics Social. I'm Graham Hughes, and tonight I'm joined by Ollie from Yorkshire, or better known as Bowler Hat Man. How you doing? How you doing, Ollie? Over in France, are you enjoying the Olympics?
It's okay. You know, my outrageous French accent.
That is awful. Yes. How is your French? Do you actually speak any French? Or?
No.
No.
I did German instead.
You did German in school?
Yes.
That's really cruel. Aren't there like 17 different genders in Germany? Don't tell J.K. Rowling; she'll freak the fuck out.
Well, the reason why I think they did made us do German was apparently the Yorkshire accent and the German accent are apparently quite similar. So apparently we've got an advantage when it comes to speaking and like pronouncing German words. But
okay,
you know.
I can't really see that myself, but okay. Right, we have Stephanie Wilson in the chat. We've got Chew3. We've got Duke Vengeance. We've got Alec Barrett. Emma Price. We've got Pete's Music. We've got Bowler Hat Man, whoever he is, don't know. And we've got Colin Thompson there. Cuba and the Conservative Party appear to be collapsing simultaneously. And Pete's Music's in there. Katrina is in there, and Emma Price, I just mentioned her. Anyway, so hello to everyone. If you'd like to join in the chat, you're very welcome to do so long as you're not a troll. If you are, we'll get rid of you, and you won't be able to post anything. But yeah, if you want to join in the chat, just subscribe to the channel. Simple as that. And wait a minute, and then you'll be able to write things, and it'll come up on the screen there. But watch out, because YouTube likes to babysit the chat with an iron fist. Is it an iron glove? An iron glove. No, one of them. Something like that. Anyway, so just be careful what you write. And maybe use a euphemism. So if you're wishing someone to not be with us anymore, maybe use the word unalive.
Yeah, or in Minecraft.
Yes.
as the gamers say.
Yes. So anyway, can we start with talking about weird MAGA? Because this has been the adjective that's been the word of the week, really, for the Democrats who have been attacking the Republicans. And what's really interesting about this is, like, you call them abusers of women, misogynists, you call them fascists, you call them Nazis. It's water off a duck's back. You call them weird. Oh my God, they absolutely lose their shit. It's really funny. And why do you think? Why do you think that might be, Ollie? What's your
they
take
are
on it?
Weird, creepy, and just insane. And there was actually a tweet by Hillary Clinton. I don't know if anyone's
Tell us
seen
what you really think.
Calling them out on that. So yeah, it's and it's well deserved. Well deserved. There's all the JD Vance stuff that has been coming out recently, and the Republicans are losing their mind on that they chose JD Vance. And you're like, well, yeah, you chose JD Vance. Do you think you wouldn't have vetted this person more closely?
Well, he's the guy who said that Trump was America's Hitler.
Yep, and then changed his mind.
Well, I mean, yeah, he must have changed his mind after Trump tried to kill his last vice president.
Yeah, he bent the knee, as they say.
Yeah. But yeah, terrifying stuff. Anyway, so are you feeling a bit more hopeful now about the election?
Well, I was always hopeful about it.
Am I feeling a bit more hopeful now? Yes.
Yeah, I think you're seeing in the polls the car momentum is building.
Yeah. Kamala stands for Make America Lovely Again.
Yep.
I don't know what this K and the A stand for yet. I'm still trying to work that out.
But no, they are doing very, very well in the polls. Really, really good stuff. Hitting hard the Republicans on abortion. You can tell that they are going to make probably this election about abortion, maybe even about we need to reform the Supreme Court. I don't know if they will go that far, but
there's been an op-ed, wasn't there, by the president saying this is the sort of thing that we need to be doing. Saying they need to have term limits, saying they need to, have 18 years, and you get to pick a new one every 2 years. So if you're president for 8 years, you get to pick 4, whereas if you are president for 4 years, you only get to pick 2, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, yeah, I can't see it going through, though, because it will require constitutional changes, and you need a supermajority to change the constitution in America. Not in the UK. You don't need a constitutional... a supermajority to change the constitution. A simple majority will do in this country. Although Labour have got a supermajority at the moment, haven't they? With all
you
of
also
their
need, I think, most of the states behind you as well when it comes to the actual amendment of the whole constitution. So that'll be very hard as well. Getting the Republican states behind you on any change, because obviously these changes to the Supreme Court will be very, very much detrimental to their absolute stranglehold they have on the Supreme Court at the moment. So they're not going to go for these changes at all. But maybe, who knows?
Yeah. So we covered a lot of this stuff last night on stateside, where I was talking to Brenna Duncan over in the United States of America. But before we move on to matters in other countries, because there's been a lot going on this week, Josh Shapiro is my pick for the VP. What's your pick?
Again, I don't really know. I'm going to sit and wait and see who gets picked, but the field, as I said on Friday, I think it's very, very much open, and there's all these different candidates they can go for. Like I say, you've got Josh Shapiro. Well, you can't go for Gavin Newsom because they're from the same state, and you can't have someone from the same state. But there's plenty of people like she can go for.
Gavin Newsom's not from. He's from California, isn't he?
Yes, he's from California.
I thought
Kamala's from California as well.
Oh yeah. Oh, you meant? Sorry, I thought you meant from the same state as Shapiro. He's Penn State.
Yeah,
which
there's a guy from Pennsylvania
state
as well.
To win if you want to win.
Yeah, you've got to have someone, as I think Scott said this as well on Friday. You've got to have sort of someone from a different state to sort of pull people and pull voters to you. So it would make more sense maybe to have someone from like either the Midwest. There's the guy from, I think, Pennsylvania that they've talked about. Again, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he's been sort of talked about as a potential pick. So they've got plenty of choice. There's even someone, I think, from Georgia as well. That might be a good pick to sort of get Georgia on their side.
That'd be Stephanie. That'd be Stacey Abrams.
Yeah.
But I think that the actual effect of having a VP is quite marginal from anywhere really. But if you're going to pick one and you want to have that slight bump in a state where it's going to come down to a handful of votes, like Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia. It's a smart move to get a VP pick from there who is popular in that state. And Josh Shapiro
Biden only
is fairly
won,
popular
Georgia, very, 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 slim majority when Georgia on back in 2020. So it would make sense to have someone from there, because that would be a big, big shift again in that state for that state to go blue again.
Just before we came on air, I read that Fred Trump, who is the nephew of Donald Trump, is actually going to be campaigning for Kamala Harris. Just like Hitler's nephew, William, who was born in Liverpool, actually fought against his uncle in World War II. In unrelated news. So people are suggesting what Kamala could stand for. We've got Katrina saying, "Can all of us make America lovely again?" We've got Kick-Ass Make America Laugh Again from Dave W, which I think Dave came up with last night. Kamala, kinda America, make America lovely again. That's too many Americas. Keep awesome, keep affirmed. Kool-Aid may alter logical assumptions. Yes, indeed. So there's a few options there. I do like that kindly attempt. I like that one from Alan. Kindly attempt to make America lovely again. It seems a bit nice, doesn't it? Considering the shit that's being flung from both sides now, which is I mean, it's kind of good to see. And Christina's telling us it's pronounced Kamala, not Kamala. So pronounce it right.
Yeah, Billy Kershaw's bringing up something that I haven't seen yet. Apparently, there's port strikes planned the day before the election.
What?
So,
in America?
I presume so.
Oh,
that's what Billy Kershaw's put in the chat.
Yeah.
So I don't
All
know. I
right.
don't know what effect that will have on the election. Maybe it's a whole, I don't know, union thing, because I know there's that really strange, like, anti-union guy who's like
Yeah.
head of a union that spoke at the Republican Party.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know if
U-
he's got anything to do with that, or maybe that's who. Yeah,
union reps against unions. That's
yeah,
very, very much a leopards eating people's faces party move,
yeah.
that, isn't it? Really. I never expected it to be my face. Right, let's move on to other stuff that's going on. Oh, hang on. We've got a £5 super chat. Yay! Thank you, Tim, for the £5 super chat. That's very kind of you. Tim says, so Trump has said the Queen to a knee to him and the UK is in his pocket. Yes. Trump is awful. What do you want me to say? I really don't want him to win. I wouldn't like him. I'd like it if he just wasn't here anymore, in general. Anyway, so, okay, let's move on to other stuff. So we're going to talk about Iran's new president. This is Masoud Pezeshkian.
Pezeshkian, I think. That's how you say it.
Pezeshkian. Pezeshkian. It's got a K-I-A-N though. Kian. He is he's rekindling faint hopes of rapprochement with the West. So tell us more about this.
Yep. So obviously he was sworn in just last week, towards the end of last week, and one of the things he very much said in his speech was that if Iran wants to prosper, it cannot just rely on China and Russia, that it has to sort of reopen itself and start speaking again to Europe, to America. So that is a very, very positive, I think, move to hopefully once again de-escalate things in this area as well. I've said this before, that if you want to help solve things in the Middle East, bringing Iran sort of back into sort of like the world fold, sort of helping to normalize relations again, that would help massively on that front, because there's two different factions in Iran, both very, very conservative. You've got this guy who is sort of more, he's a conservative, but he's more progressive as a conservative, as progressive as you can be in a country like Iran. And then you've got the other side, which are like more the hardcore conservatives, and they were the ones who were like, we don't even want the Iran nuclear deal that they signed with America. And the Iran nuclear deal worked perfectly well. Even Republicans agreed that it was a really good deal and that Obama had done a good job. And they very, very, very much begrudgingly hated it because it removed any reason for them to go to war against Iran. Mm-hmm. But of course, along comes Donald Trump and says, this deal is terrible. And that sort of hard, anti-American conservative side went, see, we told you so. This deal was wrong. They weren't ever going to sort of stick with it or anything like that. So they've sort of almost run the roost since then, based on that deal sort of going belly up. And now you've got this new guy in there who's saying, no, if we are to sort of prosper as Iran, if we are to sort of rebuild our economy after COVID as well, we can't just rely on two countries. We've really got to sort of start opening ourselves up more. And that means starting to talk again with the West. So that is, I think, a very, very good sign, I think, for future relations with Iran. And as I've said before, if you do achieve good relations with them, then there is a possibility you can start to pull them away from, arming Russia or supporting Russia in that. And we've talked about it before. It is probably the easiest one out of India and China to sort of pull away from the
sphere of influence.
So it would be very, very good if we can do that. And I think we've got certainly, I think David Lammy, of course, our new foreign secretary, really going to sort of, I think, probably push that. It would also, I think, certainly be a in the favor of the EU as well, to really sort of get involved with that as well with other European countries. If Kamala Harris does get in, as it looks like, then she will probably very, very, very much likely love to start talking to Iran and really start looking once again at rebuilding that Iran nuclear deal, because Iran wants to open its doors to the rest of the world, because they know that they need to do that if they are to ever really rebuild their economy.
Yeah.
And that will be, I think, a massive step forward to helping peace in the Middle East overall, if we can sort of start normalizing relations with Iran.
Yeah, agreed. Hey, we got a super chat coming from Sarah saying my prayers go out to the families in Southport. Thanks for that, Sarah. And what's happened in Southport, I'm sure everyone's watching this knows what's happened. Some 17-year-old psycho has gone in and murdered 3 little girls. And this is just up the road from where, from Liverpool. This is a bit, close to home. It's horrifying, and it's something that I don't feel like should be politicized. I haven't really talked about it on this channel for that reason. I think it's diabolical that there were people trying to use this as a way to have a pop at people coming across on small boats for some reason, because they decided that the guy had come across on a small boat, and then it turned out no, he was actually born in Wales, and they're like, oh, okay, but I bet he's not white, and then they started making up a name for him and spreading it around, and it's just, let's just give the family and the community affected time to process and grieve, and just if you can't do that, I think dignified silence would be called for right now, especially when it comes to these. Twitter is a cesspit at the best of times, but especially at times like this when it's kind of like, quick, find something to blame. And I guess if it did turn out to be white, he's not. His parents are from Rwanda.
Oh, speaking of Twitter, did you see which account got cancelled?
Yes, the white dudes for Kamala got cancelled by Elon Musk.
Yeah, because they managed to raise, I think it was, they managed to raise like a significant amount in like less than 2 hours.
It was a few million, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, Twitter's been an absolute cesspit today with people saying the most horrible things. And it's like, can you just give the people affected by this time? Can you just give them that? But no, they've got to jump in with their own agendas to politicize it and make out like there's something that needs to be done to stop this happening again. And yeah, there is things that need to be done. Help against poverty and help for people with mental health problems.
Yeah,
and that never comes up, does it?
We need to sort of focus on, definitely.
Yeah, and that never comes up, does it? It's always, let's ban a video game, or let's stop foreigners coming here. Anyway, so yeah, just it's absolutely heartbreaking, and still, I think some of the kids and some of the adults who are there are still in intensive care. So we'll our best wishes with them at the moment. Should we move on? Sorry, did you want to say a bit more about Iran, about bringing them in from the cold?
No, really, that's it. I mean, honestly, I think there's a big opportunity now that's opened. There's a big door open for us now, and it's just I think once you get Kamala in, you can see some probably movement there, and I think once you start to see that, you'll start to see other sort of European countries once again start to engage with Iran again. So
yeah, that's the hope.
It's a massive opportunity now for us to sort of actually engage with that, and again, I hope we do take it.
Okay, on to matters a little bit west of Iran, but not that far west. In Lebanon, there's been a Israeli missile that's hit a suburb of Beirut this afternoon, and they claim it's a targeted attack in response to the deaths of Israelis living in the West Bank, occupiers living in the West Bank, who were attacked by Hezbollah. Is this going to be the beginning of some mad escalation here?
I worry that it might be, because Netanyahu's looking for any excuse really to either expand or just continue his war. And like I say, if he can continue this war, that keeps him in power. He's pretty much destroyed, Gaza pretty much at this moment. There's no real way that Hamas are going to sort of come back in a, I think, significant way, or are going to be a significant threat. So now, once you've got a significant part of your military mobilized, you might as well start to take on Hezbollah. Once again, another sort of quite a big, more organized, shall we say, certainly more than Hamas. I mean, back in, what was it, 2006, it was Hezbollah that managed to basically fight the IDF to a complete standstill the last time that they tried this. That could be very, very much likely to happen again. But it will be a very, very, very brutal war on both fronts. There will be no quarter given between either side on this, so it's going to sort of, I think, result in yet another area like we've seen in Gaza for the past couple of months, and they're looking for an excuse. I think that's partly why you saw Netanyahu this week over in America, probably trying to sort of whip up or at least get support from Biden, because Biden, once again, really pushing Israel to sort of go for this peace deal that's on the table. Kamala Harris, I think, even coming out, I think, in the strongest terms possible. I think many other people, I think, disagree, but given the language that she used in the speech, sort of really condemning Israel, I think she's going to be a lot harsher on Israel compared to, I think, Biden, because there is a
she's already said to Netanyahu, end this war.
Yeah,
which is more than Biden's done.
Yeah,
and also
there's a big faction in the Democrats who are growing ever increasingly annoyed at Netanyahu that he's continuing this, and even though they've been giving him off ramps time and time again to get into
Israel's Trump. He is only doing this to keep his disgusting arse out of jail. He should be in jail for his crimes, and he knows that as soon as he's not prime minister anymore, he will be seeing the inside of a cell. So he's trying to cling on for dear life, using the lives of tens of thousands of innocent civilians.
Yeah, and it's once again worth bringing up that in Israel, you are seeing big protests against Netanyahu, against continuing this war, even against expanding the war. So there is protest in Israel, but it doesn't get too much attention, unfortunately. I think in the Western media, I wish it would, because I think that would, help change, attitudes, more over here if it did get a bit more attention. But again, it's worth pointing out that there are significant protests happening in Israel over this. So not even the Israeli people are sort of happy about what is going on, sort of in their name. And I think it's bringing to light now what's going on. And hopefully, last week you talked about China bringing together a sort of a unity government of these 14 different Palestinian factions. Whether that will work, as I said last week, who knows? Time will tell. Like I say, it's not like there's any love lost between these different factions, especially Fatah, which used to be the main sort of...
they used to be in control in Gaza, and they had a brief civil war with...
So there's no love lost between these factions at all. So if China can actually succeed on that and bring these people together, that will potentially be, I think, a good step forward as well for sort of a future peace in Palestine. So there's, I think, a lot of momentum here to sort of end this, and it's now once again just about keeping that momentum from America. And unfortunately, at the moment, you've got America going to an election, and
take them out of the ball.
That I think is giving Netanyahu a bit more breathing room. But I think once that's over, you then got Kamala Harris, who is going to, I think, as we said, be a lot more harder on Netanyahu, and I think he's really going to sort of, I think, start feeling the heat after that. So he knows he's got a time limit essentially now.
Netanyahu's doing anything to stay out of prison, says Vendetta. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Another thing that I think that Kamala Harris is better equipped than Biden at doing is we mentioned earlier, but the abortion situation in America where 22 states now have incredibly draconian laws brought in, policing women's bodies in a way that hasn't been seen for a very, very long time. Going back, I mean, they want to take America back to the 1800s.
And again, JD Vance saying something really weird again as well. Now wanting to sort of criminalize, women who fly out of these states to go to a state where there is
drive out
sort of abortion laws. So
they want to keep track of women's periods. He wants to make IVF illegal. So people who desperately want children can't have them, and the people who don't want them have to have them, because that's the kind of horrific Gilead dictatorship these people want. But one of the things about Biden, he never came across as strong as I think that anyone else could have done on the Democrat side, because he had been there in 1973, I think, when Roe versus Wade came in, and he was against it at the time. He's an old school Catholic, and you've got this weird situation in which arguably Biden is against abortion personally, but as politically he's for it, whereas Trump personally he's all for it. In fact, it's an open secret that he's actually paid for some of his mistresses to have his abortions, but then policy wise he says he's against it to keep all his MAGA nutcases on board. So at least Kamala is coming at this in a way that you can't argue with it. That's been her line all through her political career, and it's. I think someone put like 34 years of political service for Kamala versus 34 felony counts for Trump. And then Jez says Vance has a lot of questionable opinions for bloke that wears that much mascara. And interestingly, he's getting grief now off the MAGA lot because his wife's of Indian origin, of Indian ancestry.
It's causing a massive split on the right now because they realize, I think they've picked the wrong candidate. They've picked the wrong VP. I think under Biden, he was like the perfect VP for them, but now he's not. And they know that under Kamala Harris. So they are now panicking about picking Vance for their VP. There's a lot of talk that this might be a new Sarah Palin moment for them.
Yes.
If you remember,
except I don't think that Sarah Palin ever had sex with a couch.
Yeah, aka the Barracuda, as she was called back in Alaska.
Stephanie said earlier on the chat, going back to the events that happened in Southport yesterday, the only political part of this horrible event is that the Tories destroyed mental health services and Labour have not had the chance to rebuild them. I completely agree. But like I say, I don't really want to dwell on that at the moment. We still don't have all the answers to why, what was, what the motive was. I don't think the police know what the motive is yet. It's just a horrible, horrible thing. And thank goodness these things are so few and far between. And we are shocked by it, quite rightly. And it's shocking because we're not used to this kind of thing. In America, if it had been a lunatic running into a school and killing a load of kids with guns, it would just be Monday, wouldn't it?
Yep.
They've become so normalized to it. Vendetta is asking, was Sarah Palin ever one of those bikini girls with the AK-47 videos? I don't think so.
I wouldn't be surprised. You won't be surprised.
Hezbollah have got an AK-47 on their flag. What's the only country that's got an AK-47 on its flag?
Oh, it's one of the stands, isn't it?
No. No.
Because they're like famous for making AK-47s, aren't they?
It's not them. It's not them.
Is it not?
No, it's African.
I don't know then.
It's Mozambique. Mozambique have a AK-47 on their flag, which is kind of disturbing. But there you go. David says, hopefully Vance won't go quietly into the night. Minded to agree with you, sir. I hope that he creates as many problems as possible.
I hope he does.
For Trump.
He's going to make a massive ton of problems. If you've watched any of like I've mentioned them before, the Majority Report, or you've seen any of like the right wing talk shows, they are all freaking out about JD Vance, about how bad a pick he was. But just a couple of weeks ago, they were coming out and saying, "Oh my God, JD Vance! Oh my God, the perfect pick!" And they have completely changed the record on him now.
Yeah. Okay, well, listen, let's move on. We're going to talk a little bit.
Before we do, because we've got to talk about Erdogan, what Erdogan has said recently as well about Israel. Yes, he's come out and said that NATO needs to get involved here and protect the Palestinians. So he is talking about a NATO intervention here in Palestine. So that is pretty significant when you've got Turkey saying that they are possibly going to go in as NATO on the side to sort of protect the Palestinians. That is very, very significant. That will once again put pressure on Netanyahu as well, certainly as well, to sort of end this soon. And Turkey potentially could be a good mediator between the sort of them and Hezbollah. They've acted as that in the past, so it's possibly what they're trying to do themselves and sort of bring an end to this as well. But also for the problem in the Red Sea as well. Will this end after the war? I don't think so. I think the Houthi rebels are going to continue doing this. I can't see them stopping. I've said that before, but yeah,
it's mad in that particular stretch, because you've got Yemen on one side, the other side you've got Somalia, and that was the zone of the Somali pirates for a very long time. And then they had to change international maritime law and allow civilian vessels to have armed guards on the vessels. And then the piracy situation died down a little bit. Well, a lot, actually. And now there's a new threat of having rockets fired at you. And
supplied by Russia, potentially.
Yeah. And like, the guys on these ships are not combatants. Do you know what I mean? They're civilians. They're people who work. Loads of them are from... I mean, you get a lot from Burma, but and the Philippines, but you also get people from Bangladesh, people from Pakistan, who are Muslim, working on these boats, and the Houthis, who were also Muslim, are firing freaking rockets at them, doing their job. And being on a boat, I've got to say, like being on one of these cargo ships, signing up for 6 months at a time, not seeing your family, and being at sea nearly all that time, and cooped up. And when you get on shore now, you used to be able to go out and piss around in the local area. If you go into America now or places in Europe, you're not allowed off the ship. You got to stay on the ship since 9/11. That's it. You're like in a floating bloody jail for 6 months. It's a difficult job, and the reason why so many people from the Philippines and Myanmar, sorry, not Burma, and Pakistan and Bangladesh take the jobs is because it's worth it in their currency. But it's not worth it in any European currencies. And that's why so few people from Europe get those jobs. They might work as officers on board, but not as crew. And I just think it's maddening. I hate any kind of terrorism. And I hate that line of like, oh, one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter. And I'm like, no. As soon as you target civilians, whether you are the IRA or the Houthi rebels or the IDF or whoever, when you target rebels, you completely lose your argument. There's no excuse for it. I'm sorry, no, I don't think they're freedom fighters. I think they're just. It's that thing of like, you see a crime happening across the road from you, so you punch the person next to you, and you're like, that'll stop it.
Yeah.
Anyway, get off me, little high horse. But yeah, a NATO. Brigade, what would you call it? Regiment? What? a NATO force. That's it. A NATO force in Gaza. Sounds like a good idea to me, because the UN aren't interested in getting involved, are they?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before about how do you sort of go about ensuring a lasting peace, and I think we've talked about this before about my preferred ways is after this is that Israel just shouldn't not be involved in any sort of security in and around like the Gaza Strip at all. It should be an international peacekeeping force.
Yeah.
I think that would be far, far better. And certainly, I think that's something that would need to happen. If it's a NATO, again, maybe NATO you could see taking on that as potentially as well. But we'll see what happens. We'll see if Erdogan is sort of serious about this. So definitely someone to keep an eye on in the future, but especially if this war sort of expands into Lebanon. Hopefully it doesn't.
Yeah.
But if it does decide to expand into Lebanon, then I think you could see Turkey wanting to get involved here. I think very, very much so.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. All right. Let's talk about Mali. I think someone just mentioned it in the chat.
Yeah.
So, what's this about? The Wagner group, which is Russia's little team of rapists and mercenaries who run around other people's countries, raping and murdering. They've had their asses handed to them in Mali. So, what's happened here?
Yep. So you may remember the last time we left Wagner. I feel like you just started some sort of strange cartoon intro then. Yeah. Last time on the Wagner show.
Last time on the Wagner Cavalcade of Carnage.
So yeah, last time, of course, they were having their absolute behinds handed to them in Bakhmut, and they absolutely hated it. This was not what many of them signed up for. They are used to what are called fast lightning infantry attacks, which is where the infantry piles into lightly armored vehicles. They charge across the terrain, get out, and try and overwhelm the enemy as fast as possible. Now, in Africa, they used to do this pretty much all the time. A lot of these African countries and rebels just are not that equipped, really, to fight what was at the time prior to the Ukraine invasion, what was actually somewhat of a well-equipped mercenary force. However, things have significantly changed because after Bakhmut, we got the big Wagner coup, which obviously failed, and then
a failed coup.
Yep. So Russia then went, well, we can't really be having all these, soldiers that attempted a coup in Russia. So I know, let's get rid of them. Let's send them back to Africa. And I think we mentioned this must have been a few weeks ago. So they were sent to sort of Mali. Mali is having quite significant problems when it comes to sort of rebels and different sort of factions over there. So they called on Russia for the Wagner group to essentially end this rebellion. And they went into a town pretty much expecting a walkover.
Yeah.
And from what we know, this turned out to be a massive, massive trap by these rebels in Mali. And they have absolutely, from what we can see, destroyed Wagner. I don't think we're fully sure on like the casualty numbers here, but it's pretty significant, a pretty significant loss, a massive loss on for them on this. So as someone said,
dear, how sad. Never mind.
Yeah, it's Mali Rebels 1, Wagner 0. But yeah, the Africa Corps of the Russian army, as one angry pagan points out, that's what they're calling themselves.
Yes.
That
who have fucked around and now they found out.
And interestingly enough, one of the things that has also come out very, very recently as well, just a couple of hours before we went on air, apparently Ukraine might have had a hand in this. Some way, shape, or form.
Okay.
Yes.
But these rebels, I mean, who are they? Are they part of the ISIS in North Africa rebels that we had who destroyed Kathmandu? Are they the same rebels or are these different rebels?
I'm not
sorry,
exactly
Timbuktu,
sure
not Kathmandu. Sorry, Nepal. Timbuktu. Jesus.
I'm not 100% sure because they haven't actually come out and said who these rebels are. I know it seems to have almost been, by the sounds of it, a couple of different rebel groups coming together.
Yeah, Stephanie Wilson saying Ukrainian special forces were involved in Mali.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we know that Ukrainian special forces a couple of months ago were involved in an operation against Russia.
Yeah.
So, and they did say that they would start targeting Russian forces outside of Russia. So, they are following through on that. But this, I think, is a significant loss for Russia. It's once again a massive shock to their prestige.
Talking of massive losses, I was reading this week that the fleet, the Black Sea fleet, has been moved from Sebastopol to a port near Sochi where they had the Winter Olympics a few years ago. Is that true? Have you read about that?
I've heard about it as well, but I don't know if they've gone through with it. But it wouldn't surprise me
Okay,
if they have, because they were losing a significant amount of ships.
I know.
The
They're
Black
losing.
Sea Fleet is what down by I think 30% of its
Jesus.
original ship of what it started off with.
Oh
So
dear,
they've
how
lost a
sad. Never
significant
mind.
amount of ships.
It's quite impressive that a country without a navy has managed to do so much
Yeah.
damage to a country
Well,
with a navy.
actually, it's impressive that a country that had to sink its navy in order for it not to be captured has turned around and done such a good job
Yeah.
on this. And this is all anti-ship missiles. It's the Storm Shadows that we've been sort of providing them as well, but also sea drones.
Mm,
And it's the sea drones that have been really doing the damage on a lot of these ships. And then, of course, what they've done is they've damaged these ships. And when these ships have had to return to the dry docks to get repaired, that's when the Ukrainians have started slamming these anti-ship missiles into these dry docks to sort of finish off these ships, because they know exactly where these dry docks are. They know that those ships can't move, and they know
yeah.
that the stuff and the systems on that ship aren't going to be active. So it's really the best time to strike many of these ships when they aren't out at sea.
Apparently, it's moved to Novosibirsk. Probably saying that wrong. Sorry, Trond, if I'm pronouncing that wrong. But yeah, this is a port. It's on the Black Sea, and it's just up the coast from Sochi and also from South Ossetia, which was one of the. Oh, sorry, Abkhazia. It's just up the road, up the road from Abkhazia, which is part of Georgia, or at least it was until 2008, when Putin decided that his biggest country in the world just wasn't big enough, and thought he'll take a big, massive chunk of its neighbor Georgia. Oh, hang on. Correction. It's Novosibirsk. I can't even. That's even more difficult to pronounce. But thanks, Tron. Tinkanator. Trump still has the best odds of winning at this time. It was Trump versus Biden with 95% odds of Trump winning, to him with 66% odds against Kamala. I'll say a big improvement, but Kamala really has to shine before November. Indeed, she does. And I'm just glad there's a lot of. I think with Biden, it wasn't just that he was old and tired. It felt like the campaign was old and tired. It felt like there was no fire there. There was nothing to get passionate about. It was a bit like the difference between wanting your team not to get relegated and seeing your team win the league. You can both celebrate at the end when you don't get relegated, but it's nothing like what it's like to win the league. Not that Everton's won the league since 1987, but that's not the point. The point is check out Midas Touch on YouTube, guys. They need our help. I do watch Midas Touch. Vendetta says, put the Russian in Google Translate and click the audio icon. If Putin had wanted, he could have swarmed Ukraine long ago, says Ian McKenna. It strikes me he wants the conflict to continue. Maybe.
I really don't think he even can now. I mean, if you go back to sort of World War One, because there's a lot of people I'd say now that we've almost got a modern day version of World War One happening in Ukraine, and I don't think it's that too far from the truth. This has very much become an artillery war. Both sides have significant anti-air. That's why you haven't seen Russia, even though it has shall we say, an overwhelming advantage in air power at the beginning of this war, hasn't even obtained aerial dominance over Ukraine, something that I think modern military planners would say is absolutely essential to do now if you want to sort of, operate or, fulfill a war. But once again, going back to sort of this, you saw like the Germany, World War One, entered World War One with like the best sort of equipped, best trained army sort of in the world. And over that time, that army got whittled down in personnel and it lost experience. And that's sort of what has happened here. You've seen the absolutely a huge amount of casualty numbers here. Not only just casualties, but kills as well. And that experience that the Russian army went into of the actual trained soldiers is now gone. So they're talking about the fact that Russia does not have any large scale operational experience. That this summer there was talk of another big, Russian offensive. They can't even do that. So they're having to sort of really focus on small scale one area pushes and push forward one part at a time. Because technically, what Russia, if you were sort of a real a military planner and you were sort of looking at this, you would have Russia using its military, its numerical advantage to constantly push all across the line and look for somewhere weak so it can push through. That has not happened because they do not have the training and the capabilities to be able to do that. So that is, it just goes to show you how bad this at one point was meant to be, like this peer-to-peer army with America. It really is. And as someone said in the chat already, it's a paper tiger. It's Russia's really shown it's a massive paper tiger in this war.
Yeah. Tinkinator, thank you very much for the £10 super chat. That's very kind of you. Says, I know a Russian who lives in Novosibirsk. He hates Putin and the war, but won't leave because his entire life is based there. I only hope things get better for his country in the next few decades. I've got friends in Russia as well, and they all hate Putin, but they can't say anything because they're literally scared of them and their families being taken away in the night. Because this is the sort of thing you'd expect to happen in 2024. You get a bit of criticism, by the way, about the way you pronounce the word anti. Pezeshkian is saying, please stop saying anti for anti. We're getting far too Americanized. But missed the great opportunity to make a joke by spelling Americanized with a Z. Or, as I like to call it, a Z.
Z.
Okay, sorry. Did you have something else to say before we move on to Venezuela?
Honestly, I think just think, if he wants, as Ian has brought up again, if he wants the war to continue, I don't think he can continue this war for too much longer. I really don't think he can. It is going to, I think, end in one of three ways. Either Russia, there is going to be some sort of coup. There's going to be something political that gets rid of Putin. The other thing is that the Russian army is going to become so fractured, so broken that it literally cannot repel attacks in areas, and eventually that will just get drained away over time. And third one is maybe you could just see another coup. We could see maybe another coup by a military unit. There could be like a revolt by the military again. Just right, we refuse to do this. Like again, World War I example. The French, we forget that there was a French military union that revolted against against the high command, refusing to engage in assaults at one point. So maybe something similar happens there. There's a number of ways this could happen, but we just don't know how it will shake out really. But I think if it is something to happen, I think it will be, shall we say, Putin mysteriously falls from a third-story window. I think
Vendetta saying a window is Putler's kryptonite. And Alan's saying Evertonian that doesn't know that it is Z. Tut Graham. Do you get that? Do you get that reference? No. Everton come out to the tune from Z Cars, the old cop show from the 1960s.
Oh, right, okay.
And I was just going to say about Putin. I don't think he can stop the war because it's going to cost too much to rebuild Ukraine. So he can't surrender and he can't win.
Yeah.
So, I think you're right. I think it's just going to continue on until the other oligarchs are just like, we're sick of this.
I think next year, I think it's going to be really 2025. I think once you've got Kamala Harris in, I think once now you are seeing like NATO, you're seeing other countries really like commit long term to like supporting Ukraine. I think you've seen all the stuff about, you know, Russia is basically making 2 tanks a year. You cannot continue on
Seriously?
that. Yeah,
Seriously?
there was times recently
I think the guys from Mythbusters made more tanks than that.
yeah, they are getting that bad, and it's all this specialist equipment that they used to get from the West. So it's something like there's only 2 machines that can actually like machine the barrels that the tanks need in Russia.
Right.
So there's only like
Okay.
2 machines. And like
Okay.
you cannot fight a war while taking that amount of losses and then not try and replace them. So this whole that many people talked about this whole Soviet inheritance they got of all the arms, the ammo from the Soviet Union. They have burned through that, and at some point that ends. I think they are coming to the end of that, and I think next year in 2025, I think that's the breaking point. I think it is next year that is where we're going to see the breaking point, and it is something is going to happen. I can't say what exactly it is going to be, whether it is going to be a military revolution, whether it is going to be like a big like populist movement that emerges maybe in like, I don't know, maybe Dagestan, as we've seen trouble causing in Dagestan, because we've seen recently, once again, really sort of forcing people to be recruited from these ethnic areas of Russia.
Now, Dagestan's a Muslim
that
area, isn't it? That broke away in the 1990s, along with Chechnya.
I don't think
and along with Chechnya was brought back into the folds under pain of death, literally. So yeah, it's. I
mean, it only takes something like the Kadyrov in Chechnya. If he dies, Chechnya goes into meltdown. Because there is a guy who controls that country with an absolute iron fist by essentially the grace of Putin. And if he goes, I think anything could happen in that country. And he is not a well person at the moment. He is not a well person. So if he dies, who knows what could happen there. But anything could happen there if he goes.
Anything can happen in the next half hour. Listen, okay. Sorry, I'm going to have to take a glass of water.
I'll join you in that.
1 second. Right. I've just been on Maximilian's site, and he doesn't seem to have a live stream set up for tonight. So we can babble on a little bit, which is good, because we've only got 5 minutes to cover what's been going on in Venezuela, which might take a little bit longer than 5 minutes. So there were elections, and it looked like they were finally getting rid of the Hugo Chavez stroke Maduro dictatorship that's run the country for over 20 years now, run the country into the ground, and somehow it turns out that Maduro's won by an 80% margin or something. Could you give us the details on this, Ollie?
It's so this was obviously, you know, from the same governmental organization that brought us the amazing referendum on should Venezuela, you know, invade Guyana, or should we say annex Guyana, that also managed to miraculously win by about 80%. Gee, who would have guessed? Who would have guessed? But yeah, it does really seem that this has not been a fair election, or at least even an honest election. There seems to be some shenanigans going on here on that front. But the opposition is basically saying, look, this election has been rigged. Something has gone wrong on here. Even other international countries all around it have said, yeah, that doesn't seem normal. You know, we'd like some observers to come in here and take a look what's going on here. So we'll see what happens. But there are now significant protests now taking place in Venezuela. These do seem to be growing at pace. The opposition has been pretty much firm in their stance that, you know, his Maduro's time is over. So we'll see what happens in the coming week. But I still think there's going to be a significant tussle in Venezuela, because I do not believe you can get away with fixing an election in such a way that this happens. you can't stand on that, especially when it looks like the majority of Venezuelans do agree that this election has not been fair and fixed
No.
and rigged in Maduro's favor.
Question about Sanity. Thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Can we add research, resource, and controversy to the list of unwanted Yankisms? Let's not mainstream pollute our pronunciation, please. Well, we're from Britain, and like you walk down the street for 10 minutes and people pronounce things differently. Like here in Durham, they put extra vowels in things, so they say film, which they also do in Ireland. Actually, they say film instead of film.
Have you never been to Yorkshire? Have you ever heard different Yorkshire accents just by going to different town down road?
Well, do you know like a field on a hill? Do you call it a moor or a moor?
A moor?
A moor. A moor. Yeah, we call it a moor, but up here in Pitmatic, Durham, it's a moor. Where you it's on the moor, and they'll say sure instead of sure, like sure. Oh, hang on, we got a couple of super chats just came in. We've got Robert Duckham there. Thank you very much for that, sir. That is very kind of you. What's up, guys? Happy Kamala Day. But happy Kamala Day to you as well. And Alexander Campbell there. Did you say Maduro won by 80% majority or an 80 peso majority? Lol. He didn't win by an 80% majority, did he?
Well, that's what they came out initially and they said. And now they've brought out, as people are pointing out, that was the second one that Maduro has put out. So they came out with like, we look at this massive majority we won, guys. And then I think they realized that they might have not been, been a bit too optimistic. So they've changed the numbers to make it look a bit.
But someone was saying that if you add all the results up, they come to like 119% or something mad.
It's more. Me.
I mean, it's just. And can we just talk a little bit about the tankies? Because a lot of people online, especially on Twitter, which we know is a cesspit, are like, oh, the CIA didn't get the candidate they wanted to get in. And I'm like, are these people for real? Do they not know the suffering that the Venezuelan people have gone through over the last 20 years? Do they not realize there is a refugee crisis in Latin America caused by Maduro? People are starving in the country. And when it comes to like, diplomatic relations, it's not just that they hate America. They hate all their neighbors, so much so that they had a referendum just a couple of months ago to invade the neighbor of Guyana for what? The oil. Because they want the oil, the oil that's there. And it's a bit like, I don't understand why someone can look at a country that bullies and invades its neighbor, like Russia or Israel or Venezuela, and not just see them all as like, okay, it's never justified. It's like some countries, yeah, no, it's all right, they do it. I'm like, no.
It's because it's a socialist country. That is it. It is the perception that, like many of these tankies had, that Russia was the inheritor of the Soviet Union, and they have believed that they are still the grand inheritors of like that communist tradition, and it's not. Russia isn't anything like that.
No, it's a narco state. It's an oligarchy. And
tankies are weird. Tankies are very, very weird.
It's unbridled capitalism there. And as far as Venezuela is concerned, it is the only reason that Maduro is still in power is because of Russia. Russia wants to have an unstable country in Latin America creating refugees, because that is the Russian MO at the moment. Or sorry, the leaders of Russia. It's not the country's fault, it's the leaders. So Putin, the Muscovites who run the Russian Empire, all they want to do at the moment is destabilize areas, create refugees, because then they know that once those refugees move, as they have to, because if they don't, they'll die, into other countries, you can destabilize the countries around there, you can destabilize countries in Europe, and you can get the populists like Nigel Farage and Marine Le Pen into power. And that's what they want, because they want our countries to fail. That's what Putin wants at the end of the day. He wants all the West to fall. And
for those of you who don't know where the word tanky actually came from, this actually refers to the split in the UK Communist Party. this was obviously back when Hungary was sort of having a revolt to want to break free. And one part of the UK Communist Party said, actually, no, they should have every right to sort of break free from sort of Russia and communist control. And then the other part was like, actually, no, the Soviet Union has every right to roll in the tanks. Hence why they became known as tankies. So yeah, that's where the word tanky comes from. If you're wondering, you never heard the vernacular before.
But I was quite shocked at like people who I've been following on Twitter suddenly coming down on the side of Maduro, and I'm just like, he's a gobshite. It's fine. Get rid of him. Get someone else in. Do you know what? If he turns out to be a gobshite, get rid of him too. But it's up to the people of Venezuela. You know what I mean? And like, it's not helping when you've got interference coming in from Russia. And at the same time, they go, oh, the CIA are trying to set this up. And I'm like, I don't think any country should be interfering in this way in a country's democracy. And I don't think, that goes for Russia interfering in our democracy, which is done many times over the last decade without any kind of, sanctions being put on it for doing so. And I thought it was a bit odd. I didn't realize that Maduro had the same sort of weird effect on people like Hugo Chavez had.
The only reason is because it is a socialist country.
He told America to piss off. But he hasn't just told America to piss off. He's told Brazil to piss off, and Argentina and Colombia and Guyana, they want to invade. They told all their neighbors to piss off. So it's not like, he's leading this great Boliviano, Bolivar revolution. It's not that.
Yeah, there's... I just think there's a lot of people that just aren't really paying attention. And as I said, the only reason is it's a socialist country, and they like socialism. So clearly, nothing ever bad happened in a socialist country, right? It must be impossible. It must be a pure paradise, but it's not. It's not the reality for the people who live in Venezuela. And
millions of people have left. People have fled.
Yeah.
And that's caused problems in other countries around there, especially in going up through Central America, through Panama up to Mexico. And it's creating more border shift, more migrant shifting on the border, which is then fueling the right-wing propaganda in America and all the Nazis and the racists and the Trump fanatics and the MAGA lot. It's just fuel for their fire.
Yeah.
And we've got to stop falling for it, you know?
In fact, I would not be surprised if you looked up the immigration numbers. I would not be shocked to see a high amount of Venezuelans emigrating to America. It would not shock.
There is. But it's wrong when America does it. It's wrong when the UK does it, or the British Empire.
It's okay if the Russians do it, or
it's not. You can't have it.
Venezuela wants to do it.
It's wrong if the Israelis do it to their neighbours. It's wrong. You can't have diplomacy down the barrel of a gun. You can't declare that the country or the territory next to you is yours because of reasons. They're members of the UN. I mean, this is ridiculous that we're having. That they even had that conversation. Never mind the bloody referendum on it, which is boils my piss. Anyway, Tony Stella fella. All right, fella. All right, Stella fella. All right. Support Midas Touch on YouTube, guys. Yeah, I subscribe. I'm subscribed. Christine over in America, thank you very much for the super chat. Thank you for the Tankies history lesson. Context is useful. Thank you, Bowler Hatman. So you got it.
But this is it. A lot of people might not realize why that word exists. You might, if again, welcome to politics on the internet. There's a quite a vernacular, an almost dictionary of terms that you don't tend to see in normal life, because prior to really invasion of Ukraine, you didn't really hear too much about these people called tankies. They were there, but they were very much there in the background. And then it was the invasion of Ukraine where a lot of people went, oh, hold on, these people are a bit insane with some of their with some of their beliefs when it comes to things like Russia and again Venezuela, because they've got an ideological horse in this game. They believe that Russia is still the glorious USSR. And then same for Venezuela, because again, socialist country must be perfect, right? Must be perfect. Yeah.
It's a bit, yeah, it's a bit heartbreaking as well. I mean, I know people in Venezuela. I've been to Venezuela a couple of times. I find it really sad. Oh dear, we just had a disconnect. I don't know what happened there. I don't know if anyone heard that. A little alarm went off. It's like, you've spoken too long now. You should go to Max's channel, but Max isn't talking. But yeah, I feel like we were so close to getting a situation where the world was at peace back in 2009. You can believe how close we came to it. And then it was just like everyone got together and went, no, we can't have this. Things are going in the wrong direction. And set about, probably 2008 actually, before the Russian invasion of Georgia. Things seem to be going in the right direction, generally speaking, around the world. A lot of these wars had wound up. There was only one country on the Foreign and Commonwealth Office's website that said, don't go to any part of this country, and that was Somalia. That was it. I mean, there were places in countries that said, don't go to this area in this country, in Afghanistan or Iraq and stuff. But, I mean, there was no country that was completely off limits apart from Somalia at the time. And it just feels like we've really gone backwards, and it's not helping when warmongers like Maduro, who has made his own country terrible. Someone said in the chat there, they reckon 25% of the population's left since 2016, which wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, no, wouldn't surprise me either.
Well, when I lived
again,
in...
if you bring this up to people like these tankies, they will just say, well, those people don't deserve to live in Venezuela. They were just, capitalists who just didn't like living under a socialist system. So, good riddance to them, regardless of why they left or all these reasons. They don't care.
Yeah. Well, when I lived in Panama, there were loads of people coming over from Venezuela, and they were working in Panama, and they were sending remittances back to their family in Venezuela because the economy had collapsed, the currency had collapsed. I mean, this was the only thing keeping their family alive, and they were forced to work for menial jobs for bugger all pay because there's no minimum wage in Panama.
And again, I think you've mentioned it before, but Venezuela is one of these countries that has a massive oil reserve. That country should be absolutely
it's the biggest on earth, isn't it?
Be incredibly rich. Of what it could be using. And even for like a socialist country, why is it then not using that oil money to put it back into sort of improving the state? But it's not. It's not doing that. Fund.
I mean, I suppose as an environmentalist, I'm kind of glad that they're not burning that fuel. Leave it in the ground. Fine with me. But yeah, you're right. They could be doing so much more. They could be a very, very wealthy country. But then look at Argentina. In the turn of the 20th century, the richest country in the world wasn't America, it wasn't Britain, it was Argentina. And then the turn of the 21st century, it was very far from that. Thank you very much to Alec in the chat, who's pointed out again, I think 25% of Venezuelans have left in 2016.
Yeah, and there is someone who, by the way, I'm surprising has survived. I am still shocked he is in power.
Or Millie.
I am still shocked he is lasting as long as he is. I don't know how he's pulling off, but maybe it's his spiritual dog guide. I still can't believe that he's getting economic advice from his dead dog that he's cloned 4 times.
They're weird. People on the right are weird. End of. Claire, thank you very much for the super chat. It feels like the Dems are winning on messaging. Absolutely. I think that they are. They've hit the ground running with Kamala, and I hope that it just Kamala. I feel bad. There's like 17 different ways to pronounce her name, and I keep getting told that whichever way I pick is wrong. I try and listen to the way she says her own name, and it sounds to me like Kamala. So like Pamela, but with like you're saying calm instead of ka.
It's like com.
That's what I'm trying to go to. Yeah, but Americans say the word comma differently to us.
Yeah. I know this is what gets me as well, because I watched
you say comma, they say comma.
how you pronounce the name, and it was like, oh, you've got to pronounce it like comma, like Kamala. But you hear it pronounced differently so many times by all different Americans. It's like, which one is it?
Maybe just call her Harris and be done with it. But that sounds a bit too much like harass, as in to like bother people. So you can't win. Anyway, everyone's having a chat about sharpened sticks. Bones are sticks. Metal sticks are better than wood sticks. Again. Oh, what? Why did it just disconnect? What is going on? What is going on, internet? Do you know what? I saw an open reach, a BT open reach van down the bottom of the hill earlier, and I think that they're dicking around,
messing around
with my cables. Yoni's saying, "Yeah, what's going on? What's going on?" Is there anything else that we haven't covered?
No, that's it mostly. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Are you around on Friday? Are you going to be joining us?
No, I won't be. I'm showing around a bunch of Scots.
What?
I'm taking them drinking. So pray for me.
You're taking a bunch of Scots drinking around Yorkshire.
Yep. So pray for me.
Excellent.
It's going to be a very heavy weekend because I'm doing that on the Friday, and then I'm taking them on the train pub crawl to Huddersfield. So that's going to be fun.
It will be fun. Yeah, I hope you get the train that actually has working toilets on the old Trans-Pennine Express. Otherwise, you're going to be upset.
Oh no, it's not Trans-Pennine Express. It's Northern.
It Northern?
Yeah, it's Northern still on that line.
Even worse. Are they still using the Pacers? Or they
yes, they are. Yeah,
they are. Holy shit! Are those the things that were supposed to be just for a couple of years, and they're still using them like 40 odd years later?
That's still the same.
Anyway, right, Ollie, thank you so much for enlightening us on what's happening around the world this evening. Thank you to everyone in the chat. Thanks to the super chat, and give us a like on the way out. I will return in the morning, bright and early at 9:30. Although there is no PMQs tomorrow because Parliament's broken up for the summer.
Yes,
Parliament's just the extension of school.
Although there's still the fun of the leadership contest going on. Yeah, we've now got a referee in place. Bob Blackman is a referee, and guess what? If you dare speak out against any personal attacks or commit a blue on blue, as he said, you'll get a yellow card and a very sternly worded letter.
Just watch yourself.
Totally stop that.
Yeah, absolutely. My God. Mike Higgins saying the internet's telling you your time is up, or put another 10 bob in the meter. Good point. Okay, thanks very much for that. And until next time, I'll say thanks for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.
Bye.